Good afternoon. This May 18th of 2025, this marks the 45th anniversary of the eruption of Mount St Helens. I'm sure that probably most of my audience, all 3 or 4 of you, I don't care. I do this just for my own fun. Most of the people who might possibly come across this weren't even alive when Mount St Helens erupted. And I was 7 years old at the time. And despite my youth, it really was something that I remember quite a bit about, because something like volcanoes erupting a couple of states away, and the news and just the image is just, wow. That's the kind of thing that really, a kid can just go, wow, and remember those things, because this is a powerful event. It's like me remembering the Whittier earthquake as like the first real big earthquake I ever felt was Whittier. And looking today and saying, what would happen if that same eruption were to occur today? There's several different facets that one could say. What would be the political response? What would be the FEMA response? What would be the initial actions that would be taken for it? Those go a little bit, those are kind of separate subjects, but I want to discuss something else, which is what volcanoes do to airspace today versus what they would have done back then. I've attached right here, coming up, this is a map of the ash plume. It shows where the majority of the ash went. Now, even down in like San Diego, for a few days afterwards, we were getting ash coming down, and we would have it covering the cars. We would have it, on the houses, etc. So just despite that was where the majority of the ash was, it still hit in a bunch of different places due to the falling winds, etc. But the airlines at the time really didn't know. There wasn't much of an idea about what the volcanic ash could do to a commercial jetliner. I think it was in the 1990s. There was a flight between Australia and Singapore, British American jet, where it was at night. They were flying along, and the 747 suddenly encountered what looked like snow, and a fantastic just St. Elmo's fire explosion that left the pilots wondering what was going on. The pilot of that, I think, the commander, just died about a year ago. And I'm trying to remember what the flight was and what year it was. But one by one, the engines started crapping out. They just started shutting down, one by one, until all the engines went off. And this pilot, who is just as cool as the other side of a pillow, calmly paged the cabin crew and the passengers in the cabin as well, and said, as you probably figured out, the engines have gone out in this airplane. We are trying to get them restarted at this time. I trust that you are not all in great distress. Got them started, made an emergency landing, and subsequent analysis found out that the volcanic ash, once it gets superheated inside of a jet engine, it turns to glass and tends to gum up the inner parts. Thus, we have a big volcano that goes off. They take a look at that ash plume and they shut down that airspace for it. Flights between Europe and the United States were canceled in, I think it was 2011. Maybe it was, 2011 or 2010, when a volcano in Iceland erupted. And so commercial air traffic between Europe and the United States was shut down and stopped because they could not risk these planes flying through those ash clouds. Today, with the greater understanding that we have of the dynamics of the volcanoes, the greater ability we have to track the movement of this volcanic ash, the understanding of the risks, despite the fact that airspace wasn't shut down significantly and there doesn't seem to be any big reports of problems of any huge issues or any issues whatsoever with commercial jets during that time, volcano like that blows. You know, we could take a look. Mount Lassen. Mount Lassen's an active volcano. Mount Rainier, oh, that's a big one if it goes off. Even Mount Shasta. Mount Shasta can go off. Mount Bachelor, Mount Hood, Mount St Helens again. Those go off, there's going to be a pretty big interruption in commercial air travel for a few days at least, once they track it. And I can understand the airline companies would not want to run their planes through it because of the amount of money it would cost just to maintain, do preventative checks and services on these engines to make sure they're okay, or to change these engines out for new ones. That's a hugely costly thing. 45 years ago, that volcano blew up. And there are a lot of risks that we know now that we did not back then. Prove me wrong.